Good day to all the viewers, all the attendees of today's presentation. Today's presentation is about hotel guest. What better way to begin the presentation than by this wonderful poem by Arthur Guterman. Hail guest. Hail means good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So hail guest, good morning guest. We ask not what thou art. We don't ask what you are. And what can a guest be? Followed by a semicolon. A guest can be a friend, a stranger, or an enemy. So the poet, the very famous American poet, who is also an author, but he's known more for his humorous poems. Anyway, so Arthur Guterman says, "Hail guest, good day to the guest. We do not ask what you are. If friend, we greet thee hand and heart. If you are a friend, we greet you with a handshake and then with a hug, hand and heart. If stranger, such no longer be. And if you are a stranger and you come to my hotel to stay, then you will no longer be a stranger." If foe, our love shall conquer thee. And if you are an enemy, we will conquer you with our love. So what it means, very deep lines, what it means is that regardless of what you are, whether you are a friend or a stranger or an enemy, you're welcome to the hotel. Because a hotel can survive only if there are guests. And regardless of the type of guest, we have to welcome them and we must entertain them and we must give them an unforgettable experience. I am also reminded of more poems written by Arthur Guterman. One of the most notable poems was "New motor roads are dustless. The latest steel is rustless. Our tennis courts are sodless. Our new religion godless." Previously, the roads used to be laden with horse dung, and the roads were very dirty. And then man saw it as a problem, and he solved the problem by inventing cars. So now the new roads are dustless. Previously, most of the things were made of iron, and iron had the misgiving of rusting. People were very sad about the rusting of iron, so they invented steel, which was rustless. Tennis courts were sodless. Tennis courts are sodless. Previously, tennis courts, if you remember, the full form of tennis is lawn tennis. So it was a game which was played in the lawn on grass. And with the development of technology and with the difficulty of maintaining a grass court, the tennis courts became sodless, without grass. And being an American poet, not so relevant in India. But being an American poet, he wrote that our new religion is godless. I'll repeat the 4 lines. New motor roads are dustless. The latest steel is rustless. Our tennis courts are swordless. Our new religion godless. What I mean to say by these lines is that even though technology makes our tomorrow better, yet we must learn to live with our problems. You see, let us take the first example where the poet says about the roads being dustless. Now, do you really think it is a good thing that the roads are dustless now? People do not understand that by solving a problem, we are creating a bigger problem. The roads have become dustless, yes, but what about the carbon emission from the motor cars? The roads have become dustless, but the ozone layer has started developing holes because of the unholy emissions. So, what is better? Is it better to have dusty roads, or is it better to have an ozone layer full of holes and an unprotected earth? So, what I mean to say here is that the solution of a problem gives a bigger problem. So what we should do here is that we should learn to live with our problems rather than find a solution to everything. See, solution to everything is available, exists, but the solution comes with a bigger problem, if you understand what I mean. Nevertheless, let's move on with the presentation. What is service? If we break the word service, the anagram service, the S would stand for smile for everyone. The E would stand for excellence in everything we do. Excellence in everything we do. No compromise there. R would stand for reaching out to every guest with hospitality. V for viewing every guest as special, regardless of his social stature, regardless of his worth in the society, regardless of anything and everything. Every guest in your hotel is special. I for inviting guests to return. C for creating a warm atmosphere. See, the guest will not return to your hotel if you do not give him a warm atmosphere. Warmth is something which is what all of us need all the time. And E stands for eye contact, that show we care. So in a nutshell, what is service? Smile, excellence, reaching out, viewing every guest as special, inviting them to return, creating a warm atmosphere, and eye contact to show that we care. We move on to the third slide. This is titled, Who is a Guest? A hotel customer or client is called a guest because the hotel offers homely and professional service to him and establish an immediate relationship with him. They provide service that is home away from home. We don't call our guest a client or a customer. We call him a guest because we offer him homely and professional service. The second the guest comes into a hotel, he becomes our relative. We greet him with a warm smile and we give him all the hospitality that we can offer regardless of the fact whether we know him or not, whether he's a friend or a foe or a stranger. Regardless of any of these three, we develop an immediate relationship with him and we give him a service that is home away from home. We make him feel at home and that he feels comfortable staying with us. A guest is a valued customer who is willing to pay fair price for a quality product and wants to be neither overcharged nor underserviced. You see, one of the biggest points which we will be covering later on also in retaining a guest is to give a fair value. So whatever you are charging, you have to give its value to the guest. And as long as the pricing is fair and as long as the guest is not being overpriced, please be assured the guest is going to return to your hotel. The next slide is not very pleasant. It is the ugly side of business and it deals with classification of guests. Even though all hotels classify their guests, yet they do it discreetly. It is not made obvious to the guest and the classification is kept a very closely guarded secret. All hotels usually classify their guests into three categories. The first one being on the basis of status. So what is the status of the guest? Whether he is a tourist or a businessman come for a business meeting or meeting a scholar, a learner, a researcher who's come for a meeting, or he belongs to a group of people traveling together, or a family. So the first classification of guests is on the basis of his status. And every guest is treated accordingly, according to his status, without making it obvious to him or her that he has been classified so. On the basis of recognition, there are some guests who are very famous, there are some guests who are not so famous, and then there are some guests who are just starting to becoming famous. And on the basis of their recognition, we classify them in the second category. You see, the more famous the guest is, the more are the number of people that are known to him, and which means that his satisfaction or his dissatisfaction will reach a large number of people, and that we have to categorize him as a famous person and treat him accordingly. And the third class of people that normally hotels create is on the basis of revenue. And this is very important because every hotel is a business, so it has to treat the various types of customers, the guests that it has, according to the kind of revenue that they are generating for the hotels. So on the basis of revenue, there may be three types or four types, I would say, of guests: economy, mid-scale, upper mid-scale, and luxury. Four classes. So economy guests are the people who are generating minimum revenue for the hotel. Mid-scale and upper mid-scale people are guests are those which are generating good money for the hotel, and luxury is the next level, wherein the guests are not concerned about the pricing and they are willing to pay a hefty sum for the wonderful services that the hotel has to offer. slide is about guest satisfaction. Guest will be satisfied if you satisfy all of his four needs, whether physiological, economic, social, or psychological. What is the meaning of physiological needs? Physiological needs are those which are related to the senses, to the five senses. The sense of smell, the sense of touch, the sense of sound, the sense of taste, and the sense of sight. So, physiologically, the sight of the guest room, the sight of the lobby, the sight that he sees from the balcony or the window of his room is important. The smell that he gets when he enters the room, when he goes to the balcony, the vicinity of the hotel, the sound that comes in the buzzing, the murmur, the thin walls, if you can hear the people living in the next room, whether his room is located near the staircase, which reminds me, what if your room, if the guest room is located near the lift and the sound of the lift constantly comes to the room? How do you deal with this problem? See, the solution is very simple. At the time of registering, at the time of booking the guest, you tell him, sir, our normal tariff is rupees X, but we are charging you less because the room that we have booked for you, that we have thought for you, is located near the lift, and there will be sounds from the lift coming to your room, which is why you are being charged so much amount lesser. Is it acceptable to you? And if the guest says yes, he's forfeited his right to complain. He cannot complain now that the sound of the lift is coming, because he's paying lesser amount and he's understood before entering the room, before registering, that there will be sound of the lift. So physiological needs need to be met. The next type of needs are economic. Economic needs means, like I said earlier, the guest needs to be given value for his money. Whatever the hotel is charging, the hotel must give fair value back to the guest, and until that is done, guest satisfaction cannot be achieved. Social needs. Today, guests come to the hotel to flaunt more than to have a comfortable stay. The social media has really taken all of us to a new level altogether. The hotels are, to an extent, they are afraid of the guests, that what would happen if the guest posts negative comments on the social media. We all know about Trivago, we all know about Twitter, Google, we all know about other websites, and the guest is quick to post his reviews on the social media. No hotel can survive if its reputation is not good. And today's youth, they believe in word of the mouth. So they will not choose a hotel unless it has got very good reviews by the guests who stay in them. So social needs of the guests must be addressed to very carefully. They may make or break your hotel. And last but not the least, the psychological needs. Psychological needs, the guest needs to be made to feel important. Even if he is not famous, even if he is not paying us that much amount of money, even if any of the other factors, but he has to be psychologically treated like a guest, like a king on top of the world. More of these needs will be addressed to in the later slides. But please understand that guest satisfaction is a must for all hotel businesses. Having understood the psychological needs of the customer, we now move on to delivering a service that is acceptable to the guest. The first step towards solving any problem is recognition of the problem. So the first step in delivery of service is to recognize what are the needs of the customers. The needs of the customers may be, as told earlier, they may be social, they may be psychological, they may be economic, or they may be physiological. So once we recognize the customer's needs, then we can give him accordingly a better delivery of service. Delivery of service has to be, regardless of all circumstances, regardless of everything, it has to be with a smile. Now, what is so great about a smile? Why do all teachers, why do all hospitality educators talk about smile? You see, smile has got the property of being able to hide your inner feelings. Now, is it important for you to show how you're truly feeling to the guest? No, it is not. The guest does not care. The guest is not paying you money to know what is happening inside your heart. He's paying you money so that he can get good service. And how can you give good service is by masking what is happening inside your heart. And the best way of masking your true emotions is by putting on a smile, a happy smile on your face. That all is well in your life and that you are eager to please the guest. So delivery of service is incomplete unless you know how to smile. Think positive. Our hotel business is very based on psychology. Our thoughts should be positive. We should be in the attitude of service. If there is even the slightest doubt in your minds about whether the hospitality is good or bad, or whether you should do it or not do it, then please think again. Because there is no room for people in the service industry who are not positive. There is no room for negativity around you. You are in the right kind of business and you have to be positive in your outlook. There has to be genuineness. So when you smile, when you offer something, when you say something to the guest, you must mean it with all of your heart. So don't say things like, I'll be back in a second, because it is impossible to be back in a second. Instead say, I'll be back in 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and then let it happen so. There should be genuineness. If you're smiling at the guest, if you're smiling when you're serving to the guest, that smile needs to be genuine. Because the guest is not a fool. He can see through if it is a made up or a fake smile. Or if you're actually feeling negative because you've not scored so well in an exam, or because somebody else was promoted over you, or whatever else situation in your life, the guest can see through, unless you are genuine and you realize that whatever has happened in your house or whatever has happened at the back of the hotel or in the personnel department of your hotel, whatever that is something else. And whatever you're doing now while you're serving to the guests is something else. Until you realize this and you bring about genuineness in your work, the guest will be able to see through and he will not be happy about it. Expectations have to be kept in mind while delivery of service. What does he expect? Different kinds of people have different expectations, and we must, as hoteliers, be very good psychologists and understand what are the customers' expectations. With the increased globalization, customers, guests know what is happening around the world. The whole world has become like a small village now. Now, with so much knowledge, what follows is comparison. So while they are living in a hotel in India, they would automatically compare it with the kind of services and facilities that they were offered in a hotel in France, for example, Paris. Now, which may be fair or unfair, it's not up to us to decide. But there are lots of reasons for the guest to be dissatisfied. Now, dissatisfaction must be dealt with by the hotel to the best possible way. But hotel owners are not gods. There are certain things which are under the control of the hotel, and there are certain other things which the hotel has no control over. Now, some things that the guest can control, that the hotel can control to avoid guest dissatisfaction, may be providing more amenities or allowing a pet in the room, the hotel may allow, and providing concierge services such as a city tour or buying movie tickets or acting as a local guide, taking the guest around the city, concierge services, that is under the control of the hotel. The other kind of things which may bring guest dissatisfaction but are not under the control of the hotel, beyond the control of the front office of the hotel, may be rainy weather. Now, if there's rainy weather and if the guest cannot play lawn tennis because of the rains, I mean, there's nothing the hotel can do about it. Or there are unsightly surroundings of the hotel. If from the lobby the view is not good, I mean, there's nothing that the front office can do about it. So it will lead to guest dissatisfaction, which is beyond the control of the front office. Or, for example, the guest insists on an unreasonable discount, which the hotel cannot offer. So these are beyond the control of the front office of the hotel. Should there be any complaints, and please take complaints as positive. Should there be any complaints, always apologize immediately and take steps to correct the fault. Ask the person in charge to attend, giving brief outline of complaint. Never argue with a guest. Do not try to excuse the fault by blaming someone else. The guest will not be interested. Try to ensure that all complaints are settled within the hotel. Never invite guests to write complaints. And at all time, while dealing with the guest, politeness is of utmost importance. Be polite always, always keep a smile. Don't find excuses. Make sure that the complaints are settled within the hotel and apologize immediately. And not only just apologize, but take steps to correct the fault as soon as possible. The objective of the previous slide is very simple. It is to ensure that every guest who has cause for dissatisfaction is impressed by the professional manner in which we handle the complaint. You see, we have to create a lasting impression in the hearts of the guest, and we have to behave very professionally. So while there are some things that we can do, we'll say, yes, sir, we will look into the matter immediately. And when there are certain things which we cannot do, we will not say no to the guest. We will say, sir, I'm sorry, but this is not in my control. Please allow me to get in touch with my supervisor, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So whatever be the reaction, the bottom line is professionalism. As long as we are professional and we are creating a positive impression on the guest, we are doing our job well. In the business of hotels, complaints need to be handled in a certain way, like mentioned earlier, in a professional way. Now, what is the general philosophy of complaint handling in hotel industry? The general philosophy is complaints show both the good and the bad points of operation. Complaints must be used to have a better understanding of shortcomings and to correct them. Handling a guest correctly is a question of attitude. What is attitude? Attitude is a way of thinking, how you think. Now, if you believe in your heart that the guest is important and the complaint that he is making is genuine and it can be dealt with, then the way you react to the guest, the way you speak to the guest will show your attitude. And if your attitude is right, if you are positive, the guest will understand and he will sympathize. And he will either withdraw his complaint or whatever will happen, but the result will be one which is very professional. The worst thing that can happen is when the person handling the guest complaint adopts an arrogant manner. How dare you, stuff like that. And I am so and so, I am principal of IHM. Now, this arrogance is something which will not be taken to by the guest lightly or properly, and this is very unprofessional. What are the benefits that we can have from guest complaints? They highlight guest views and needs. They highlight priorities. They provide free auditing. Complaints provide free market research. Complaints identify training need. They allow retaining a customer. Complaints should be used to develop staff morale and interdepartmental communications. Complaints can be used to develop the management team. Complaints develop the social skill of management and staff, and complaints provide feedback on staff and management attitudes. As a hotel manager, you must understand that different staff react differently to guest complaints. The various reactions that can be shown by staff towards complaining guests are concerned. Sir, I'm really concerned about your complaint and let me see what I can do about it. Concerned, genuinely concerned. Helping, providing a helping hand right away. If there's something which has to be picked up from the maid's cart to the guest room, why not? Let me do it for you. Indifferent, sir, I don't care because I belong to the housekeeping department and your complaint refers to the engineering department. So please talk to somebody else. That is indifferent. It doesn't matter whether the complaint relates to you directly or not. The guest does not know, does not understand the organization structure of your hotel. It doesn't pay you to understand the organization structure of your hotel. The guest is paying to get a good experience. And your indifference sets a negative image about the whole hotel. It's not a good reaction. It should be concerned, it should be helping, and it should be immediate. Ignoring. Now the guest says, I want a glass of water, and you are acting as if you've not heard him. If that is the kind of reaction that you show towards the complaining guests, I mean, you are not in the right business, sir. Happy. That is, some of the better people, the better staff in your hotel, they feel happy when they receive a complaint, that they now have something to do, that they have meaning to their life, that the guest has complained and now their job has become more meaningful. And then, last but not the least, some people get angry when the guest complains to them. Now, as a hotel manager, you must understand that these are the various reactions that the staff may have towards complaints, and you must take steps in controlling these reactions, in educating the staff, in telling them about it. The steps to be followed, following steps should be followed in order to ensure that the objective is achieved. Avoid conflict. Say, how can I help you? Try to guide away from other guests and staff. See, one of the golden rules about conflict management or about complaints management is that when a guest is complaining, take him away from the other guests. Whenever you want to criticize or complain, please do it privately. Whenever you want to praise or accolade, do it publicly. These are the golden rules of conflict management. Listen to the guest. Allow the guest to tell his story. Do not interrupt. Try to identify his needs. Show sympathy. Show sympathy to the guest. Apologize. Be genuinely sorry. When you are saying sorry, please lower your eyes for a brief moment. Show concern. I am so concerned, because ultimately, if you believe that the guest is important, that the reason you are where you are is because of the guest, you will understand and you will show sympathy. Display humility. Avoid arrogance at all costs. There is no room for arrogance. And if possible, invite him to sit down. You see, it is a beautiful thing to have a complaining guest to sit down. And you will be surprised to know that he will feel lesser angry when he is sitting down. Do not justify. Avoid making excuses. Only give explanation to satisfy an identified need for an explanation. Ask questions. Make sure you know all the facts by asking questions. You can also confirm that you have identified his needs correctly. Agree and take action. Make sure you get his agreement to your proposed course of action. Remember, it is wrong to buy your way out of trouble. Get his agreement. Let him agree. The minute he agrees, all dispute is settled. And last but not the least, make a note of all this so that your future dealings with guests can be better than they were this time. Follow up and feedback. Last but not the least, after the complaint has been resolved or the complaint has been addressed, you follow up and take feedback. Make sure you follow up the actions taken to ensure that it is completed satisfactorily. Take preventive action to avoid reoccurrence of the complaint. and of course give feedback to the. A few facts about complaints. Now we are trying to understand more about the depth of complaints. Some facts about complaints. For every one person who complains, there are at least 5 others who keep quiet, and all of these 6 will tell at least 6 people each. So one complaint may mean 36 lost customers. One satisfied person would speak to 3 new customers. Finding new customers is not easy, and it costs 4 or 5 times more money than it does to look after an existing one. What are complaints? Complaints are an expression of disappointment or dissatisfaction. Complaints are ways of making a protest. When do the guest complains? When do guests complain? When the perceived level of service is below the desired level of service expectation, when the quality of product or service is unacceptable, when there is limited choice, when wrong product is offered, when the timing is wrong, or frustration due to treatment of staff or being ignored. These are the reasons when guests complain. What causes complaint? The following are the reasons for a complaint to be caused: where a member of staff has failed to do something properly, when a guest has been kept waiting, where a staff member has missed a message, missed wake-up call, when a member of the staff misunderstood the guest, if any defective or broken product is provided to the guest, or if there is loss or damage of guest property, then these are the reasons that cause complaint mostly. What are the customer expectations when he complains? This is what the customer expects from the hotel staff: to get concern, to be given priority by the management, to be treated courteously, to be believed, and he wants someone to take ownership. And finally, the guest, when he complains, he is complaining not just because he wants to gain attention, but he wants to get a satisfactory result. To believe that the problem will not be ignored, that the problem will be solved. How to handle complaints? Do not argue and stay calm. Be a good listener. Apologize for the problem. Ask question and take notes. Taking notes is very helpful. Offer solution. Act on the problem. Monitor progress and follow up. This is how you handle complaints. Do not argue. Be a good listener. Apologize for the problem. Ask question and take notes. Offer solution. Act on the problem. Monitor progress. Complaints are opportunities, not threats. Complaints show both good and bad points of our daily operations. Complaints are opportunities, not threats. Handling a guest complaint correctly is a question of our attitude as a professional. Complaints highlight our shortcomings and hence help the management become defect-free. Guest satisfaction after a complaint results in guest dazzle. The guest gets dazzled that yes, he's come to the right hotel, that the management, the staff of the hotel are very professional. So guest satisfaction after a complaint results in guest dazzle and delight, and hence remember word of mouth publicity. Please remember that the hotel businesses of today are surviving on word of mouth publicity. Like I said in one of the earlier slides, that the youth of today, they are quick to give their reactions on the social media, and they follow the social media for understanding the reputation of a hotel. So guest satisfaction after a complaint results in guest dazzle, which is very important for the survival of your business, hotel business. Benefits derived from guest complaints. These are the benefits that we can derive from guest complaints. They highlight guests' views and needs. They reveal weaknesses in standards and systems. Guest complaints provide free quality control. They highlight priorities. They provide free auditing. They provide free market research, and they identify training needs. Guest complaints prevent complacency by providing an objective eye. So laziness in the staff can be avoided by guest keeping an eye on the staff. They enable us to prevent reoccurrence of a certain event. They give an additional opportunity for guest contact. They provide an extra sales opportunity. They allow retaining a customer. Complaints can be used to develop the management team. Complaints develop the social skill of management and staff. Complaints provide feedback on staff attitude. It is very important for the management to get feedback on attitude. Staff attitude cannot be judged by any other means than by reactions, comments, complaints by the guest. They can be used in staff appraisals. These feedbacks from the guest can be used in staff appraisals by the management. Complaints involve senior management in hotel problems. So complaints are a way in which the senior management of the hotel gets involved in providing solutions. Complaints lead to increased profitability. Complaints are an expression of disappointment or dissatisfaction to make a protest. When do guests complain? When the perceived level of service is below the desired level of service. When the quality of product or service is unacceptable. When there is limited choice. When a wrong product is offered. When the timing is wrong. Or frustration due to treatment of staff. Or guest complaint when they are being ignored. What causes a guest complaint? When a member of the staff has failed to do something properly, when the guest has been kept waiting, where staff member has missed a message, missed wake-up call, when a member of the staff misunderstood the guest, if any defective or broken product is provided to the guest, or loss or damage of guest property. That is what causes guest complaint. Customer expectation when he complains, first to get concern and to be given priority by the management, most of all, he should be treated courteously. It does not matter whether the complaint is genuine or not, but courtesy should be maintained at all times. The guest should be believed when he is complaining. The first time we should trust everybody. The second time we can be wiser. The third time we can decide. But the first time, please remember, we must believe what the guest is saying. Someone should take ownership. So it doesn't matter whether the complaint belongs to your department, to your jurisdiction or not, but somebody who owns should be brought forward and the complaint be dealt with by the concerned person. And last but not the least, the complaint should have a satisfactory result. Either the complaint is resolved or the guest should be made to understand that this is how things are. Customer expectation while he complains to believe that the problem will not be ignored, that the problem will be looked at and dealt with. How to handle complaints? Do not argue and stay calm. Be a good listener. Apologize for the problem. Ask question. Take notes. Offer solution. Act on the problem. Monitor progress and follow up. Complaints are not threats. Complaints are opportunities, not threats. Complaints show both good and bad points of our daily operations. Handling a guest complaint correctly is a question of our attitude as a professional. Complaint highlight our shortcomings and hence help the hotel operation become defect-free. And guest satisfaction after a complaint result in guest dazzle and delight, and hence remember word of mouth publicity, which is most important. We come to the end of this second part of the presentation about guest complaints. Benefits derived from guest complaints. Complaints highlight the guest's views and needs. Complaints reveal weaknesses in standards and systems. They provide free quality control. They highlight priorities. They provide free auditing. They provide free market research. They identify training needs. They prevent complacency by providing an objective eye. They enable us to prevent recurrence of the event. They give an additional opportunity for guest contact. They provide an extra sales opportunity. They allow retaining a customer. Complaints can be used to develop the management team. Complaints develop the social skill of management and staff. They provide feedback on staff attitude. They can be used in staff appraisals. Complaints involve senior management in hotel problems. And last but not the least, the bottom line of any business, they lead to increased profitability. With this, we come to an end to the second part, and we will now begin the third part, which is how to deal with difficult guests. Handling difficult situations. Most of the guests like to be treated like important guests and not as intruders. I would say all the guests like to be treated importantly. Guests like to be respected. Make every guest feel as if he were the king. With tact and courtesy, all difficult situations can be handled well, believe me. Tact and courtesy. How do you deal with an angry or impatient guest? Apologize immediately, only for the specific problem. Do not give reasons and explanations. Logic does not work with anger. Do not argue with an angry guest and act immediately. Handling difficult situations, how do you deal with a snob guest? A snob is a guest who is trying to show off his contacts, his money, his attire, his general being. So a snob, how to deal with a snob? Ignore the show off, but do not ignore the guest. Do not talk about your contacts, Do not try to be a bigger snob than he is. Just do what the guest wants with speed and smile. How do you deal with the break the rule for me type? Oh, it doesn't matter, I am so and so, and you can do that. For example, smoking in a non-smoking zone. What does it make a difference? Let me smoke here. Break the rule type. How do you deal with him? Be firm, brief, and polite. Do not argue. Suggest an alternative if possible. Be firm, brief, and polite. Do not argue. Suggest an alternative if possible. Only say, I am sorry, sir, I am not permitted to do that. Or you might add on to say that, sir, please allow me to get in touch with my supervisor and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But the best thing is, I'm sorry, sir, I am not permitted to do that. Or I'm sorry, sir, the law does not permit that if it is more grave. I'm sorry, sir, but the law does not permit that. How to deal with a fussy guest? Fussy guest, complaining and grumbling, not telling specific demand. Grumbling and mumbling and mama, 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 and not telling the specific demand. Fussy guest. Try to find out what he wants. Ask questions for which he has to answer either yes or no. Once the needs are discovered, act on it immediately. The socializer guest. The guest invites female staff members out. That kind of guest. What do you do? How do you deal with him? Do not act offended, angry, or surprised. Use humor. Be firm but polite. If the guest persists, contact your manager. That is one of the best solutions that I can come for you, is whenever you're handling a difficult situation, if you think it is beyond your control, please contact your supervisor or the manager. The next slide about handling difficult situations is about how to handle a chatterbox. These are guests that take a lot of your time. They want to talk with you and they want to chatter, chitter, chatter with you all the time. Be polite, considerate, and courteous. Do not be rude. Listen. Look for a short break. Make a short comment. Excuse yourself and move off. Or Last but not the least, one of your colleagues can give you a call on your cell phone and you can use that as an excuse and move off. Drunk guests. There are 4 stages of drunk guests. Stage 1, simple excitement, logic works. Simply the guest is excited and you can deal with him as a chatterbox. I'll repeat, as a chatterbox, you have to be polite and considerate and courteous. Don't be rude. Listen. Look for a short break. Make a short comment. Excuse yourself and move off. Or one of your colleagues can perhaps give you a call on the cell phone, which you can use an excuse and move off. Stage 2, no control on the emotions. You have to deal with him like you would deal with an angry guest. Let me repeat, act immediately. Do not give reasons. Do not argue and act immediately. Said again. Stage 3, when the guest is highly under the influence of liquor, movements are affected. Logic does not work. Divert his attention. Use tact. Remove him from the guest area when he's in stage 3. Stage 4, drunk guest. Totally drunk, totally paralyzed, totally out of control. How do you deal with a totally drunk guest? Send him to his room immediately. Remove him from the public area. The next situation, difficult situation, is dealing with a timid guest. A timid guest does not voice his complaint but shows through body language like frowning, finger tapping, shrugging shoulders, and looking displeased. How do you deal with him? Talk to the guest and draw out his or her feelings. Ask questions. Find out what displeased him or her and act to meet his or her needs. Ignorant guest. These are the guests who are not aware of the rules. This is the second last slide. Explain details briefly and to the point. Be polite and don't lose patience. The last slide, and perhaps the most difficult situation of all, is language. A guest who does not speak English and you do not understand his language. How do you deal with him? You try to get someone who can understand that language. For example, the tour leader, another staff member, or perhaps the dictionary if you can find one. However, internet can be used to try to decipher what the person is saying. If this is not possible, try to understand his signals. With that, we come to an end to this presentation. I hope it was gainful and liked by you. Before we leave, on behalf of IHM Meerut, I would like to thank you for being a part of this presentation. I would like to thank the management of IHM Meerut for making this possible. Last but not the least, I would like to thank God for giving us yet another day on which we can do great things and develop ourselves and make the most of this situation that we are in today. God bless you. God bless all.